Hey guys, I've had several people ask me what I use to treat bugs with, to fertilize with, so I thought I'd take a minute to kind of talk those things through and show you what I use and why. So this is, I guess, a gardening 101 from Misty. So at the beginning of the year, mostly I don't treat for bugs at all. The only thing I do is I use a couple of things for fertilizer, and it's an organic fertilizer option. I'm missing one of the components, but I'll link that in the comments below. So I'm going to turn this here. So what I use is this is Brown's liquid fertilizer. It's a fish hydrolysate. And then Neptune Harvest seaweed plant food. The plant seaweed has the soluble potash, it's the K2O, and the Brown's trout has nitrogen, it's 2% nitrogen, 3% phosphate, and 1% soluble potash. So it actually gives quite a bit of nitrogen to the soil. The other thing that I use is molasses, and that's here. So this is just, you buy this at the farm and feed store or in your hunting supplies. And what it does is it gives some trace minerals to the plants. And often what I'll do is I'll take 2 tablespoons of this, 6 tablespoons of the fish, 1 tablespoon of the seaweed, and that goes in my 1 gallon sprayer. The other thing I use is a little bit of, I've got it just in a jar right here, but it's a soap, and you can buy in the store a spreader sticker, which is basically a soap or a surfactant that keeps the liquid on the plants. So what I'm using right here is a Dr. Bronner's sow suds, and the Dr. Bronner's is, it's a nicer thing. It's better than, say, Dawn dish soap, but people use that as well. So in that gallon I would use only about a teaspoon of the soap because I don't want it to be too much. So that's what I would spray on all of my vegetables, and here's kind of an overview of the vegetables. But that's what I would spray on all the vegetables about once a week in order to get them going. The other thing that I do with the molasses is I'll take a 5-gallon bucket and put about a quarter cup to a cup of the molasses into a 5-gallon bucket, mix that up, and then actually pour it out on the ground. That gives some really good food to the soil and to the ecology that's in the soil. So one of the things that I've learned is that plants have a symbiotic relationship with quite a few different things in the soil, little nematodes and bacteria, and I can't tell you what they all are, but they have this symbiotic relationship with them where those things need the roots, and the roots need what those things, like the byproducts. So the molasses is actually to feed the ecology, not the plant itself. It's just to feed the ecology, but it works really well. So I often will water with that a couple of times through the year. So as the year progresses, bugs start to arrive, and there's several things that you can use for bugs. The first one that I use in my spray is this Captain Jack's Dead Bug. It does a really good job. Not 100%, but it does a really good job. And so I think the mixture for this one is 3 tablespoons per gallon. So 3 tablespoons per gallon. And that's what I use through most of the year. I also use a powder form of the same thing, and then dipel powder. I mix the 2 of them together, and I will sprinkle those, especially on the squash, because what happens is squash will get a little caterpillar that will crawl into the stem at the base where it hits the ground, and that stem will then die and the entire plant dies. and it's very sad and it makes us upset. So we treat those quite often. And then, so I'll show you a couple of those things. The other thing that I do is this one here. This is neem oil. And neem oil is, I think, the best for dealing with aphids, the best organic for dealing with aphids. It also can deal with black spot, powdery mildew, and rust, and that's really important. And I start using that further in the year, and I'll show you what I mean by this. Okay, so here we go. You can see down in here my stems have been coated with that powder. Can't see any spot where they've come in, thankfully. So, but you'll also notice the kind of discolor here. There's been some bugs on the squash. It's turning up this way, so we definitely treated them today. Also, beans get kind of a rust, and you can see that in this. And they'll actually die. The entire plant will die because of the rust. So I treated this way. I treated beans, all the beans, with the neem oil. And this is the time of year that I go from being an organic garden to a non-organic garden. One of the things we really deal with is a little bean bug. See if I can find one. Oh yes, there's one that has died. Let's see if you can see it. Okay, right there. So he's yellow with little black spots, and they can decimate beans really badly. So about this time of year, one time I will treat with 8, and I did that today, both here and I've got beans under the corn. So from now on, my beans will not be organic, but the hope is that these bugs will die and we won't have them to deal with them until next year. So it's only the beans that I treated with that. Also, you can see I've treated the greens here with the dipel powder, and the reason for that is because I had some aphids come in, and so I treated those yesterday, and then today I sprayed with the neem oil. I'll show you one other thing. And one of the things we deal with squash is a powdery mildew, and so here's a leaf that I didn't treat this morning. Let's see if you can see that. So it's kind of got this whitish haze on it, and that whitish haze is from the mildew. So again, I treated all of the squash today. There's another good example of the mildew. So I treated the squash today with the mildew. So I'm going to wrap this up, and then in a minute I'll talk a little bit about, actually I can do it now. So in our area, one of the things we deal with our tomatoes is a blight that starts at the bottom of the tomatoes and works its way up the plant. You can see that at the bottom it's brown, or all the leaves are brown, and the top it's still green. So there's a couple ways to deal with that. One, tomatoes use a tremendous amount of calcium, so we plant them with bone meal. We also sometimes treat them with lime, which helps to provide calcium for them through the year. However, in order to try to really stay on top of this, about once a year, I do use a copper fungicide. So my tomatoes aren't specifically organic. They're sustainable, but they're not organic because of the fact that I use the fungicide. So that is Gardening 101, dealing with pests and fertilizing. Next up, I'll talk a little bit about corn.